All right, it is September 15th, Tuesday. It's almost 7 p.m. I'm going to continue my story from being in PA to till now. Um, I decided to move back from PA after my 6-month lease ended. Kind of said, to hell with this place, it's terrible. And kind of went to carpentry and landscape jobs when I got back to my dad's house, and saved up some money, and then decided to move in with my cousin after about a year. I was about 21 at the time when I moved in with my cousin, and we had some kind of weirdo roommates when I first got there that, you know, they were sinners, whatever you want to call it, and kind of hippie people, you know, smoking pot, doing drugs, whatever. And then it was good for a while. I got a job at Subway, and my cousin, she was working at Starbucks at the time. But while I was working Subway, it was kind of hard, or it got progressively harder for me after a while, you know, just having to make sandwiches every day, but also when, you know, I had to deal with girls, especially. I think one of the hardest times was like Valentine's Day. I would see couples come in the morning, get a sandwich, they leave, and then later on that night they'd had broken up, and then I'd have to kind of deal with their girlfriends coming in all sad and depressed, and me just kind of being, you know, out of it and frustrated with girls already. And of course, dealing with, you know, underage girls coming in and trying to hit on me was also probably the most painful thing for me, is just ignoring them. Just feeling like crap if I did talk to them, if I would feel even worse. And but, you know, as time kind of progressed, my cousin, she actually got a job as a stripper, and we got a new roommate who was also a stripper, and I kind of had to be the defense of the house for kind of creepy men coming and finding out where they live or whatever, or knowing where they live. There was countless times I'd have to answer the door with my body armor or whatever on, and tell them to kind of piss off. And you know, it's hard to get sleep at night with that. There were times where they tried to kind of break in or sneak in through the back door, and I had to kind of be there to protect the house. But, you know, as time kind of went on, I actually got put in the first hospital hold after I moved out of my cousin's and in with one of my brothers in South Denver. I remember I tried to get a job at like a steakhouse kind of place where they did like bison burgers, and the other employees there kind of made me feel like trash, just constantly. You know, they wouldn't even give me a dinner or whatever, or let me eat. So I wound up just quitting that job after 2 weeks, and I remember sitting there depressed, trying to talk to my mom on the phone about girls, you know, kind of made her call the cops on me. She was like, you know, you're delusional, you need psychiatric help, blah, 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 blah. And I remember the cop came to my door while I was folding laundry, and I remember answering the door. He's like, well, I gotta take you in. I'm like, well, what the heck? You know, like, why do you got to, you know? Oh, it's my job. They have to. And that first hospital hold was pretty difficult for me. I actually kind of met a girl in there who was self-harming, cutting herself, just stuff like that. And I gave her my number, and she got so happy that she, you know, started dancing, like a complete 180 from depression. And remember, she actually even tried to climb the fence in the courtyard out of, like, I don't know if it was just mania or pure joy or whatever, but I remember when I got out of there, she just didn't even talk to me anymore. And that was pretty hard on me, just knowing like girls are so broken that they don't really care about you, even if it seemed like they would have. Of course, that just kind of continues the depression for me, just knowing that there's not really anybody there for me. As far as if I have problems, that there's nobody I can actually talk to about them. The therapists, the parents, my family, they don't care. They're like, it's you, your problems. And therapists are like, well, here's some meds, that'll help. I've been getting through every single hospital hold without medications, and that is probably the most difficult thing a man can do, is go through persecution without punishment. I got through that hold, and then I moved in back with my dad for a while, and then I worked for a little while, and I think it was about, I was 22, 20, no, I was 23 when I finally moved out again to Nebraska with my aunt, and tried to tell her kind of what I was going through with trying to meet girls, and she would just say, you get a job, blah, 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 and it's like, well, that's kind of been this deep disappointment I know so well, is having a job and still not being able to find good girls, so I'm just going to go search around. So there in Nebraska, I drove around to colleges, to churches, to concerts, and just kind of went around looking, never finding anybody I could really feel comfortable with. And I even drove to Iowa, and that day I drove to Iowa, I called my mom and said, hey, there's not anybody, any good girls around at all, and told her kind of how depressed and suicidal I was, and she calls the cops again, and the cops have no idea where I was, so that's kind of like, well, what the heck, how are you going to catch somebody who's driving around frickin' Iowa? But I did eventually go back to my aunt's, and just kind of waited there for the cops to show up, and I remember getting guns pointed at me, because it wasn't like, oh, this guy's depressed. They actually got told that I was out there trying to kill people or something from my aunt. It's like, well, my aunt hated me that much that my family just doesn't know how to deal with me looking for girls, that they would tell the cops these horrible things. And I remember having to get out of my car with just like loaded guns pointed at me, and being an old gamer, I look at these cops like, you really want to shoot me? It's like, they have no idea who I am. And when they put me on the ground, they of course did the George Floyd maneuver and put their knee on my neck, just like, did I really deserve that? And I even tried, did talk to the cops at that point, and they were like, damn, dude, you're going through a lot. It's like, yeah, fucking can't find good girls, can't do anything in life without this depression just slowing me down. And I remember that was probably one of the few holds that was super persecutive of me, was having a nurse practitioner say, while I was undressed, you're never getting out of here. That was her only words to me, and I was like, really? I'm never getting out of here? Why would you say such an awful thing to me? It's like, what did I ever do? Nothing. Just absolutely nothing. But you read in the reports of the allegations, is like, what the fuck? Why am I getting so persecuted for wanting to meet girls? It's like the most persecuted thing in the world. And I did get out of there after 2 weeks, but it's also kind of a haunting experience for me, is being in hospital holds, because I do have nightmares about it still. I still have nightmares of having chairs thrown at me by psychos, the amount of threats, the kind of evil people that work in these holds, portray themselves in my dreams still as evil people. And I did move back to Colorado after that, and just was so depressed that I wouldn't really even leave my house. And after that hold, I actually did get kidnapped in my own car at knife point from someone who was a meth addict. Got brought all the way to Missouri, where we had a car wreck. And while I was there, he had some friend there or whatever that we taxied over to, who had prostitutes at his house. And I remember talking to these prostitutes about the child trafficking stuff. And lo and behold, I was able to report one at Red Roof Inn in St. Charles, Missouri. And I believe that the FBI did follow up with that report. But once I finally did get back home after a horrible experience, it was probably the most depressing thing ever, because I didn't have firearm rights after hospital holds of suicidality. I didn't have any inclination of really working after that, just so depressed that work seemed like an inevitable disappointment, and got put in another hospital hold entirely because I was sitting at home depressed. So the police would show up 2 or 3 times to talk with me and not be able to reach me, and then eventually they did and took me into a hold. And then it happened again another time where they put me in a hospital hold because of my cousin, and she actually had passed away while I was in the last hospital hold from a drug overdose. So about a week into it, I have to hear that she had overdosed. So it was quite the horrible experience for me to be in a 35-day hold that time, because they take all of your past holds and use it against you to try to put you on medications. And I got through that hold without being put on drugs yet again. So it was like, well, you're really gonna, try to put me on drugs when my spirit doesn't need it. My spirit is, running off a processor. This idea that your brain has chemical imbalances is why you're depressed is bollocks. My soul is running on this brain. It's not the other way around. It's like, you can kill the brain, you can't kill the soul. You can try to drug the brain, but I'll just, I'm not gonna let that happen. You can fight me to the death. I'm not gonna let you kill my brain just because you feel like that would help me. Brain killers, as I call them, they're not helpful at all to this depression, especially when I know there's so much terrible stuff going on. Like I don't feel inclined to numb the pain. That's probably what really took my cousin, was her trying to numb it. You can't numb it. It's there. You're in a world that's screwed up, and if you can't fix it, then what can you do? You can numb it. You could try to do what I do and go around searching for answers, but the amount of truth that you really come across is just more deep disappointment. And so lately, since I've been out of the hold, I'm still going to groups, still going to churches, still trying to find somebody who's not terrible for me. It's just, people are so bizarre with the way they live their lives. It doesn't make sense to me, somebody who's kind of a gamer. I still play life like it is a game, because I know that there's not really much point to working. There's not much point to contributing to a society that's screwed up. There's really not. It's like why even build an empire on sand? It's just gonna crumble. It's like there's nobody I can look up to. There's nobody any young men can look up to. There's no good values in politics. There's no good values in either presidential candidates. There's really just You know, for especially young women, you got, you know, Netflix over there producing horrible shit all the time, propaganda towards young women, and it's not going to change. You know, if I were to develop movies, it would be the opposite from them. You know, it would be returning to the old, you know, the old values of kings and princesses and stuff like that. And that's something they really hate, because they love the fact that they can go to Boulder, Colorado and buy prostitutes. They love the fact that people are horrible. They get enjoyment off of it because that's their life. Their life was so awful that they have to make other people's lives awful. Like, that's really what it boils down to. And I do hope that my stories can kind of give perspective as to why I'm the way I am. Just, I hope everybody has a good life. So, you guys take care.